Anarchist arsonists in Athens, Greece are at it again. Greek police say suspected anarchist arsonists have firebombed two government buildings in Athens, causing minor damages but no injuries. They say that pre-dawn attacks this morning targeted Public Works Ministry departments using homemade explosive devices made of cooking gas canisters. Also in Athens, the offices of the French news agency Agence France-Presse was targeted. The attacks caused no injuries. They're apparently in reaction to the arrest of anarchists in France. Cooking gas canisters seem to be the favorite mode of attack. We report on these anarchists whenever something happens, and that's always what they use for the explosions. Speaking of explosions in India, airports in the entire country went on a high alert this morning following fresh attack warnings. And we have a picture here of a demonstration of Mumbai yesterday in which regular Indian citizens lined up protesting the fact that they did not feel secure and were threatening to withhold payment of taxes unless the government provided security for them. Officials in India continue to say that two senior leaders of the banned Pakistani militant group that orchestrated the Mumbai attacks remain at large in Pakistan. The most recent alert comes as Pakistani President Asif Zardari promised visiting American Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice that Pakistan would take strong action against any elements in his country involved in the recent attacks in Mumbai. Heavily armed guards from India's Rapid Deployment Force manned roadblocks outside of principal airports today, while others patrolled inside airport buildings among passengers. Several extra layers of security were set up, and some passengers had bags scanned with devices to check for explosives. A senior police official said passengers had been asked to pass through 6-stage security checks. One passenger who flew from New Delhi to Lucknow said her bags were checked half a dozen times and she went through a metal detector 3 times. Her quote was, "Sometimes it seems tedious, but it seems to be the need of the hour." Speaking of air traffic, the International Air Transport Association said that international air traffic for October showed a second consecutive month of decline. Here's a map of the air traffic over the U.S. at any given time during the workday. International passenger traffic declined by 1.3% compared to the same month in the previous year, a smaller decline than the 2.9% drop experienced in September. The October load factor was about 75%, which is about 2% below previous year levels. International air freight traffic contracted by about 8% in October for a 5th consecutive month of increasingly severe drops. According to Giovanni Bisciani, the IATA's Director General and CEO, the gloom continues and the situation of the industry remains critical. While the drop in oil prices is a relief, recession is now the biggest threat to airline profitability. CATEX, Germany's third biggest insurer, said losses on equity investments are expected to cause a 93% drop in profit this year. You'll recall that yesterday we reported on Wilhelm Zeller, who was the CEO of Hanover, which is 53% owned by CATEX. At that same press conference, apparently, the CEO of CATEX himself, Herbert Haas, spoke after Mr. Zeller. He said, quote, "The financial markets crisis has hit our business especially hard as impairments on equities are not tax deductible in Germany." He went on to say, still, CATEX remains well capitalized with a solvency ratio above 140%. CATEX expects net income to drop to 32 million euros this year from 477 million euros in 2007. That follows 1.1 billion euros in losses and impairments on equity investments, as well as 160 million euros in write-downs related to corporate bonds from Lehman Brothers and Washington Mutual. Mr. Haas said that CATEX remains, quote, fully committed to its majority holding in reinsurer Hanover Re. As I said, Hanover reported yesterday that it's heading to its first ever annual loss this year after impairments on equity investments led to a loss of about 143 million euros in the first 9 months of the year. Maurice Greenberg is in the news again today. Mr. Greenberg and a group of other former AIG officials will have to defend themselves against the lawsuit over control of Star International Company's ownership stake in AIG. In an order yesterday, New York State Supreme Court Justice Charles Ramos in Manhattan denied motions by Greenberg and ex-CFO Howard Smith to dismiss a breach of fiduciary duty lawsuit filed by AIG earlier this year. Greenberg controls Star International, which also happens to be AIG's largest shareholder. According to the court, ultimately whether Greenberg and Smith properly discharged their duties of loyalty while simultaneously serving as Star directors will require a fact-intensive assessment of their conduct. AIG claims that Greenberg, Smith, and other officials at Star misappropriated a large block of AIG shares in March of 2005. Those shares were valued at about $20 billion at that time. Greenberg and Smith both left AIG in the same month amid probes into the insurer's accounting. AIG claims that they remained as directors for 3 more months until June of 2005. Unfortunately for AIG, Greenberg and Smith dispute this chronology. They say they were long gone by then. AIG claims Greenberg seized control of Star International in March of 2005 and reneged on an arrangement where a block of AIG shares controlled by Star were used to fund a deferred comp plan for AIG executives. AIG has alleged that Greenberg engineered a, quote, coup d'etat to usurp control of Star International's board shortly after leaving the insurer. It's all going to hinge upon whether or not Mr. Greenberg was on the board as late as June of 2005. In 47 days, President Bush will no longer be president, 47 days and 11 minutes to be exact. One of the little-known powers of the American president is the power to pardon those who have been convicted of criminal offenses. President Bush has made a couple of pardons as he's come down to the end of his time. The most famous pardons, of course, were from President Clinton, who pardoned disgraced financier Mark Rich just several hours before he left the presidency. A number of people are popping up trying to get President Bush's attention. One of them is the former WorldCom chief executive Bernie Ebbers. Mr. Ebbers has filed a petition asking President Bush not to pardon, but to commute his 25-year prison sentence for his role in the $11 billion accounting fraud that sank WorldCom. A U.S. Justice Department spokesperson confirmed this morning that Ebbers has indeed filed a petition with the Office of the Pardon Attorney that seeks the commutation. Ebbers was convicted of conspiracy and fraud back in 2005 and has been serving time in a federal prison since September of 2006. WorldCom, you might remember, emerged from bankruptcy in 2004 under the name MCI Inc. It was later acquired by Verizon. To date, Bush has pardoned far fewer people than Bill Clinton did. Bush, however, did pardon 14 people late last month and commuted 2 other prison sentences. Unlike a pardon, a sentence commutation does not wipe out a criminal conviction. It does get you out of jail, though. Others seek